Now, I do want to transition because this is when it gets complicated. And I described the mesh network of what we see right now, right? So we have mental health, tinnitus, and TBI changes all happening. And yes, they are individual, but at the same time, they are so roped together. And I'm going to show you an example of why that's the case, okay? So here we have subjective symptoms. And this is the only, I'm not going to say it's bad. It's a bad thing about the proposed rating change, but it's something that definitely makes me consider and makes me question, right? So out of 0, subjective symptoms that do not interfere with work, instrumental activities of daily living, tons of mental health symptoms there. Work, family, or other close relationships, that's a mental health symptom for the inability to maintain effective relationships that we just talked about. Examples are mild or occasional headaches, and then mild anxiety. That's at the 0. Obviously, if you look the more severe, they add things. So intermittent dizziness, daily mild to moderate headaches, tinnitus, insomnia, hypersensitivity to sound and light. The reason I wanted to bring those up is because it is black and white. Those are migraine symptoms. That's clear as day. Okay. And so now I don't necessarily fear it because that's what we see TBI right now, especially at 70% mental health. And really, you'll see that with PTSD, right? PTSD with TBI at 70%, meaning the VA is roping those together. And so in one line of thought, I see 5 buckets for mental health. I see 10 buckets for TBI. I initially think that's a problem. I'm thinking, right? I'm initially thinking, hey, it seems like they're going to be able to segregate the symptoms better, right? So now you can have a 70% for PTSD and a 30% for TBI, right? Which would be great, especially for those with PTSD and TBI who are not at 100%. That would be a stellar VA change. That's what I think initially. Whenever I read subjective symptoms, that completely takes that off the table, right? And we don't know this for sure. This is just how I'm interpreting it, which I think is very clear to me, right? So, for instance, I said earlier that I had some TBI instances with little residuals, okay? The main 3 residuals I have are tinnitus, dizziness, vertigo specifically, and then migraines. And that dizziness sucks. It gets to a point where, like, if I take an elevator, I will vomit. If the elevator moves fast or it stops suddenly, some are faster, some are slower. If I'm on a fast elevator, I'm yakking. You just need to watch out, okay? And it sucks. It's funny, but it also sucks because now I'm nauseous for the whole day. But that's a residual. And so right now, can I be rated for dizziness, or in the 38 CFRs, peripheral vestibular disorders, dizziness, vertigo, right? Can I be rated for that at 10%? And TBI with mental health at whatever percent that is, and migraines right now, yes. In the future, okay, my initial thoughts, again, just looking at this statement right here, dizziness, headaches, tinnitus, insomnia, hypersensitivity to sound and light. It seems like the VA is almost prepping the rating to say, migraines with TBI at 30%. Does that make sense? Right? Like they
kind of like the tinnitus thing.
Yes, it allows the VA to rope TBI under more disabilities than just mental health. It could be vertigo at 30%, right, with TBI, which again wouldn't be too bad because you're still service connected, but it's kind of like the changes with insomnia. It's like, okay, you have tinnitus with insomnia. Great, you have insomnia, which is bad for healthcare reasons, right? But it's still capped at 10%. So it's kind of like a backhand, the VA is like, hey, you have insomnia, you get 10%.
And most of the time, you're going to want to have 2 different ratings. You're not going to want one rating that couples in a bunch of stuff, right? In the back, the back issue is a good example of that, right?
Yes.
Back, is its own. Radiculopathy, its own. Arthritis, its own. You don't want back with or without arthritis, with or without radiculopathy, rated 20%. You know what I mean? That's not what you want. You'd much rather capitalize on the additional ratings. You know, I wanted to, I pulled something up here, Clay, and I wanted to read through it here real quick and get your, see if you wanted to add anything to it here. Yeah. This is on the sensory neuropathy criteria. So it's kind of, we're back and forth now because we were just talking about TBI stuff.